I am very happy to testify before any congressional oversight committee. I have nothing to hide. I can explain and validate everything that I've done.
A few moments later.
Under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
All right, Darren, I'm sure you just saw the clip that we just showed, and, well, Fauci took the fifth, because, that's what all good scientists who have nothing to hide do. Just kind of wanted to poke your brain on this. Why do you think he did it, and what do you make of it?
Many years ago, I might have said something very scathing about Fauci and the fact that he opted to plead the fifth this many times. But, I think I've evolved and have changed my opinion on this to the point where I think, good on him. This is just a witch hunt. In my view, I mean, there's really nothing to gain, I think, from questioning him. So, the Trump administration can't deliver any tangible victories to the base, so they're going to relitigate the whole COVID nonsense. That was a whole 5-6 years ago now, and we're bringing it back up. And to be frank, I was tired of the COVID talk in 2022. So I mean, to hear it again in 2026, I mean, I don't know. I actually almost felt bad for Dr. Fauci. I support his right to invoke the Fifth Amendment because I don't think it was a serious hearing. But what say you? You seem a little more indignant about it.
Yeah, I mean, I have, listen, I guess let's just rewind the clock a little bit, right? Like, Dr. Fauci was put basically on a pedestal during one of the worst pandemics in the history of this country. And, he and the administration asked a lot of the the American people to trust them, to, lean on their guidance for policy. And ultimately, in my opinion, what we have found out after the fact is that there was a lack of transparency, and it was not always a medical based decision. I don't want to get into too many specifics, but I'll just say you're aware of what he said for the N95 mask, right? He said, "Oh, don't worry, we don't need to mask, we don't need to do that." And it turns out that he was just lying to protect the supply of masks, right? And so that's a political decision. That's not a medical decision. And I think it kind of I would have loved to see a good faith debate or conversation with Fauci about why did you make this decision? What was the purpose behind it? Because I mean, and you tell me, I would love to hear your opinion on this. Whether you're pro Fauci or anti Fauci or you don't give a shit, I think it's unquestionable that what he did during the pandemic eroded so much public trust in public health that I don't know that we're ever going to be able to fix it.
I would say on the spectrum of pro to anti-Fauci, I would probably lean ever so slightly on the anti-Fauci side because, as you said, and I had actually forgotten about the N95, the mask thing. So that's perhaps more egregious than the example I was thinking of, which is the lab leak versus the animal origin. So in that case, I definitely lean a little more anti-Fauci. But I'm definitely I don't know if I can put the blame entirely on his feet in terms of eroding public trust, or in fact, I don't know if I could put it in any large part at the feet of Fauci. He might have contributed some, and I don't know that he's blameless, but I just feel like the conspiracy atmosphere at that day and time was just really, it was really anomalous. It's like the conspiracies were just insane. And some of them were more credible, some were less credible. Most had to deal with the vaccine. Obviously, very few people thought there were microchips in the vaccine, but there were like more subtle uh, and more perhaps believable conspiracies that really just didn't have any basis in reality, like that the vaccines might cause myocarditis and people were dying suddenly, like that was like a hashtag, like died suddenly or something.
Hmm.
And to my knowledge, that never got substantiated, so I just don't think that's true. Uh, so I don't know. I just think there was a huge atmosphere of conspiracism at that time. And I think almost anyone who was in Fauci's position might have ended up on the short end of the stick. But he certainly could have conducted himself better, I will say. So I'm definitely not pro Fauci, but I just want to be fair in my analysis of him.
No, and I think I'm closer to where you just portrayed than maybe I was letting on. I guess my grief is like I was looking at Fauci in a vacuum, right? I hadn't even really considered the fact that we had a fucking president at the time, who people often forget, who these conspiracists actually reelected, right? Like the same people who were talking about the mark of the beast or the microchip or the vaccines cause myocarditis. These are the same people that likely voted for Trump, right? Like that's just a
Oh yeah.
coincidence. And he was the president when this supposed lab leak happened. There's a lot of let's ignore that for now. But um, you're right. Like and I hadn't really considered that like because maybe I was pinning too much of this like on Fauci, but you're probably right in the sense that like regardless of Jesus Christ, for example, could have been the spokesperson for public health and he would have been crucified. No pun intended. But but maybe that's right. But I don't know. I just think that like a lot of this, like Fauci could have definitely conducted himself better, and like there's this lingering community of people that say that like they got everything on COVID right, and then like people like you bring up like, well, what about like the microchips in the vaccines? What about the facts that lockdowns were supposed to never end, right? Or all of that. Um, Fauci for me is the fall guy for politicians because it's a lot easier to just blame Fauci than it is to take credibility or accountability for what you did. Like there's no scenario where Trump takes accountability for the lockdowns. The 2 weeks to slow the spread was Trump's idea. Like there's no, and I know I'm rambling at this point, so you can.
No, no, I mean,
But
these are all things that I had forgotten about. I'm glad you're bringing them up because, yeah, I mean, 2 weeks to slow the spread. Of course, that was wrong. But knowing Trump, I'm sure that's just something he pulled out of his butt. And then it was so obviously wrong and has led to all this hysteria since. I mean, you think of people like, and honestly, I hate to bring him up because I really don't have anything against him, but Joe Rogan and his like universe, his cast of characters, they're all very, very guilty of just harping on the COVID, the Fauci issue, like just to a point where it just was not warranted.
mhm.
Uh, it seems like there was a perhaps, yeah, maybe 2 year, 3 year period, you would tune into one of these alternative media shows, Joe Rogan, even Bill Maher to an extent, and it would just be COVID, COVID, COVID. Oh, the government lied. Oh, and it's like, looking back at it, they could have done better. I mean, and as Fauci's diary revealed, they could have done a lot better. They did misrepresent things, but I think ultimately, like, they were working with relatively limited information, and they weren't learning things much faster than we were. So I think a lot can be forgiven, and I'm willing to forgive.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, I think a lot of the stuff was handed, like, this conversation is dominated by psychopaths, like you said. Like people who are convinced that the government was going to have these permanent lockdowns and we're going to have our civil liberties forever taken away. And don't get me wrong, where there's some people, and I'm not putting this lightly, like this is awful and this sucks, but like there are some people who, like, died alone in a hospital because of the COVID restrictions, right? You couldn't go into the ER or whatever, right? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
discounting that that didn't happen, but we can't talk about that, how that decision got made, because we have to defend the efficacy of a vaccine that we know is effective, or we have to prove that it doesn't have a microchip in it, for Christ's sakes. So like the debate around COVID was always set up for failure as soon as we let those people direct the narrative. Like at least in my opinion, the conversation should have been like, should we be doing gain of function research? Did that cause a possible leak? Which we're still not sure, right? And to be honest with you, we probably will never find out, because if it was true, then the Chinese have definitely destroyed the evidence by now. But then,
Oh,
like,
certainly. Yeah.
but more importantly, like, how does public health guide policy decisions? Like, how are we going to make public health decisions in the time of a crisis? Because, like, that's still, like, personally, like, my concern. These conspiracy theorists aren't going away, and they're only going to get better at what they do. So let's say the Spanish flu rolls around, or even just COVID again, point whatever percent death rate. I don't even know how we respond. So I don't know.
Yeah, I that does terrify me because COVID, I mean, obviously people did die from it, and I've had COVID I think multiple times now, or maybe once and maybe another time I had the flu. Either way, it knocked me down. It's a hard thing to deal with, but uh it's roughly equivalent to the flu though. So it wasn't like earth it wasn't like world ending, but honestly, like, if it was bad, like if we're talking about something like polio, or the bird flu, or whatever, can you imagine that in the environment of conspiracism? that
No,
was that
no,
was
I can't.
2020. It would have been nightmarish. I mean,
You know,
if
it's it's really funny, because when people talk about the conspiracies for the COVID vaccine, like, like, to be candid to those people, right? Like, Biden did pass an executive order that said something along the lines of like, hey, if you don't get vaccinated, like, they can fire you, basically. Like, it's a public health measure. That is not how it happened with polio. In polio, they rolled up to your town. They said, we have 5,000 vaccines. You don't have a choice. You are putting this vaccine in your arm. You know what I mean? Like, the idea that,
Mhm.
like, basically you were held at gunpoint to stay in your house. And, like, you and I lived in Oklahoma at the time. Like, yeah, we lost a year of school and all of that. But, everyone I talked to actually sounds like, COVID was a pretty kick ass time for, like, college age kids. Like, I'm not too worried about us. But the elderly people who lost some final years, like, that sucks. But, I mean, I don't know. We gotta figure out something. It was a crisis. Like, we didn't know a lot of information.
Yeah, and hindsight is so 2020. Like, obviously now I think it probably would have been more appropriate to, just leave the schools open, so these, all these COVID kids didn't have like a kind of stunted development, learning wise. Because I do think I have heard from teachers that there is like a,
They call them COVID kids. Like, it's a real term. It's crazy.
oh yeah, yeah, it's a phenomenon. I mean, they're I mean, they're just not as far along as they otherwise would be. They're more socially, I guess you could say, dysfunctional, but or
Now,
less developed.
hmm. Now, if I can, this is really one of the issues I wanted to get your topic on. Do you have any more to say on anything we covered so far?
Oh, that's about it. That's
Okay.
about it.
The it never fails. Anytime somebody brings up Fauci during this, they're always going to talk about the fact that he supported like the natural origin, like the wet markets and the pangolins and the sea turtles and whatnot. And there was a COVID-19 lab, research lab in Wuhan, and it seems at the very least like possible that there was a leak. I've always been curious, what do you think the reason for the emphasis on the leak is? Because let's assume it was a lab leak. How that shouldn't really impact policy decision on how we treat dealing with the virus, right? So, regardless of whether
Yeah.
or not it's lab leak or natural origin, like our handling of the crisis should be the same. The only possible thing I could think of is, you know, how that would just impact our decisions about like gain of function research afterwards. But that wouldn't have impacted the lockdowns. That wouldn't have impacted the 6 feet, the 2 weeks to slow the spread, the mask. That wouldn't have impacted any of that, right? I mean, maybe you disagree, but I was just curious, like what you thought, because I'm not a right winger. I'm not really in that sphere, so I don't really know.
No, I'm in full agreement. And that's always been something that it's like, to me, it's like, well, I think it, most likely was a lab leak. I mean, it just seems more plausible. But to me, it doesn't really change much of anything because the virus is here.
Hmm.
I do think, though, going forward, maybe we should put more regulations, precautions in place if we're going to do gain of function. Uh, Perhaps we suspend gain of function altogether. I don't know. I'd have to hear some more arguments for it. I've heard arguments for it and against it. It's been some time since I've done so. And ultimately, I don't know that it's worth it. But I mean, it doesn't really change anything because the virus is here with us now. So,
Right. No, that was always and I never understood it, and I never, to be candid with you, like I never got an answer that satisfied me. I always thought that it was just a way to obfuscate blame from Trump at the time. Is that like, oh, Trump didn't mismanage this. This was an intentional leak from the Chinese government. And I'm like, what? Okay, now you're losing me because it hurt them a hell of a lot more than it hurt us. Like, it makes no sense to tank the global economy when you're one of the fastest growing economies on the planet. That makes no sense to me. And kill
yeah, I
your own
fully agree.
people. Like, the conspiracy made no sense. So I was like, well, I was just curious if you had a thought, because I have no opinion. I definitely at the time leaned more towards natural origin. Now I could say, not to Hillary Clinton you, but at this point, what difference would it make, right? Like, so,
Yeah, I
but
fully agree because it's not like it was a bioweapon because if anything, I feel like and obviously the Chinese numbers were, you can't really trust those, but there were videos coming out from China when the virus first emerged and I swear I saw Chinese people like falling down on the streets and like having from this virus like when it was first happening. So I do feel like until they locked everybody up that it was hitting them very hard. And yeah, I mean, if it was one of those things where Chinese people were unaffected, but maybe Europeans or Africans or something were like dying in droves, then the lab leak theory might require further investigation and special scrutiny, because then we could, we might have reason to believe it's a bioweapon, but that's just simply not the case.
Well, and I feel like these conspiracy theorists have it true because they will tell you that it was a deliberate leak by the Chinese to hinder our economy. But they will also tell you it's actually less deadly than the flu. It's actually no big deal. It's no big deal. So it's like, okay, it can't both be a bioweapon meant to tank and kill Americans, but also no big deal, right? Like you can't have your cake. You kind of got to pick a lane there, you know? And I mean,
Certainly.
you could argue it was an ineffective attempt, I guess, but even then, it feels like we're just starting from our conclusion and working backwards. But okay, well, that was pretty much all I had. Do you have any more COVID-related things that you feel like could be beneficial to discuss, or would you like to move on to yours? Sorry, that was a short one. I just, I was
No,
curious what you
you're
thought.
fine. No, that's really all I had to say on it. You know, back in 2020, in 2021, I was far more conspiratorial than I am now.
Oh
But
yeah.
even then, I don't think I ever, I certainly never went as far as people like Joe Rogan in terms of like some of the stuff I've heard him say. So,
Yeah, now I will say it is funny, and I'm just now thinking about this. Do you remember, like, whenever I think of COVID, I think of like the crazy conspiracy people, and not to pick on my own side too much here, but do you remember the cringy shit these celebrities like? Do you remember the Imagine video that all these
oh,
celebrity?
yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
Wasn't that just the cringiest, dumbest things? You have these multi millionaires in their fucking McMansions talking about how we're all in this together and we can get through this if we try, and then that's like literally they pay more in taxes on the property they filmed that video on than like you and I will ever own in our life. Like it's just unbelievable that I can't believe people did this shit. It blows me away.
It was
But
certainly tone deaf. And oh, and let me ask you something.
yeah, absolutely.
So I basically knew nobody that worked from home except like teachers. They got to do like the virtual, but I had to go to work. My wife had to go to work. I feel like everybody I knew was an essential worker, quote unquote. So, I don't know. Maybe it was a state by state thing. Obviously, we were both in Oklahoma at the time. So maybe that's the reason, but I feel like I knew very few people who got to stay home. I feel like I feel like most everybody had to go to work. So maybe that's just how it was among the proles, but who
No,
knows?
no, I completely agree. I mean, I know tons of people. But to be like candid with you, like all the people who worked at an admin job and like it was office work and the office was like, "Hey, we got a letter from the state. I actually had an internship canceled because of this. So I
Oh
was
man.
like, this sucks. Yeah, yeah, with Hobby Lobby, you which is crazy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you might have told me that actually.
yeah, it's crazy. And I was like, well, shoot, I guess I'll go work at Amazon, right? so
Yeah.
so that's exactly what I did because they were like, "Oh yeah, Amazon's essential because if there's one thing we could be in a, end of the world pandemic, but god damn it, those packages are guaranteed in 48 hours by the threat of capitalism." So, we are, but Hobby Lobby, fuck them. Well, it's Hobby Lobby corporate to be fair, but yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting time, COVID. Um, I remember like some of our like isolationist friends, like they loved it. Like COVID was like the best time ever for them, but I don't think on average people had as much fun with COVID. But
Yeah, it was very annoying, like also being admonished for not having like the mask over your nose. I think that was the worst part about COVID for
a
me is was like
boo-hoo.
the constant like I know it's like not a big deal, but it was so annoying when people would be like, you're too close to me, will you please step back? Or um you're chin diapering. Will you please put your mask over your nose? It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
So that's what would
It would
make you
drive me
spur out.
insane.
See, the masks to me were such a like you got to think, man. Like in the moment of a true crisis, like it's just such a small ass to me. Like I understand, like these people go ultra libertarian and they go, oh, but our fucking civil liberties have tell us we have the right to fuck you and your public health and da 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 da. And I just kind of thought that Americans were above that, and I guess I was proven wrong because the amount of people that I knew personally that were like, "F you, I don't care if this kills you. I'm not wearing a mask, and I for damn sure I'm not getting jabbed." And I'm like, that's crazy, like that's crazy to me. Um, but anyway, the mask bothers you for real? They didn't bother me as much.
It was kind of annoying after a while. I mean, it got sweaty. It was, and then if you had to put it over your nose, like the breath would like get on your face, and your face would
Yeah,
heat up and get like perspiration would collect, and it was uncomfortable. And then you'd have to
yeah.
take it off. But then when people came in to talk to you to like give you a task to do or something, you'd have to put it back on. And
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. There was definitely cases of that being like completely overblown. Like one of the biggest ones is I remember being on the lake during like the summer, the first summer. First of all, the summer of love of all summers, right? And
yeah.
we'll ignore everything else that happened during that time. But we were on the water, and it was literally just me and my dad at like 6 in the morning on the lake, and freaking oh, what do they call it? It's not a game warden, but it's the people who run the lake. Maybe it is a game warden. I'm not sure. They were just making sure we had our fishing license and had life
Mhm.
jackets, stuff like that. They told
Probably
us
was a
to.
game warden.
They kicked us off the fucking water because we didn't have masks. I was like, okay, come on. It's literally just the two of us out here on the water, and for like we live together. Like there's no escaping it. If he's got it, it's gonna kill me. Like what? It none of like don't you feel like if that was the concern, like I can agree. Like I had to go golf with a mask on and I was like, literally, this is the dumbest sport to be pushing this. It's crazy. But
Yeah, it was when it was over policed that I had a real problem with it. I could deal with it if it was like in short bursts, but you'd see people wearing the mask in their cars. I'm like, what are you doing? Take that off. I don't know. It was
I'm trying to think. The only time that I could think that I did that, I didn't consciously do that, but it might have been like I was working a shift at Amazon at the time because I was in college that summer, so I was definitely working at Amazon. And so I would just instinctively walk out of the warehouse because they policed it, dude. It was like the Gestapo. Like that
Oh, I
that's
bet. Yeah.
at the because well, yeah, you're talking thousands of people in that warehouse. And so it's probably warranted there. But I would just maybe naturally walk out to the car and keep it on, but like I would never consciously. It's like me alone in my car jamming out to Taylor Swift, and you think I'm wearing a mask? Like get fucked, get fucked.
Yeah.
Crazy, but okay. Well, that was a fun conversation, but unless there's more you'd like to talk about for that, but I'm ready if you are to go on to Spain and Morocco.
Yeah, let's hit it. Let's hit it real quick.
Yeah, give
I
us
think
give
we
us the
just
recap
about.
there. Give us the recap there, brother.
Yeah, so last weekend, I'm sure our viewers saw because it was pretty ubiquitous online. There was or prolific, I guess. There were these horrifying images of like 40 to 60,000 was the total count of North African Moroccan migrants pouring into these Spanish holdings that are actually in North Africa, uh, situated right alongside Morocco's borders. But nevertheless, I mean, it is Spanish territory, and the scene could be described as nothing short of an invasion. There were so many of them, they quickly overwhelmed any municipal authorities, and they had to call in the Spanish army to dissipate the migrants, and it was insane. They were looting. I didn't see way too much violence. I did see some. I think I saw one video of a knife attack. However, which I do believe uh, was authentic, just because there were so many what looked like migrants around. It seemed like something hard to fake. So it was violent. It was disorderly. Ultimately, though, Spain seems to be getting a handle on it, and I think most of them have been dispersed, and they have went back to Morocco, and they share a land border, so it's fairly easy to deport them. Unlike when they cross over the Mediterranean Sea, like sometimes you'll see like a Libyan do this, or an Algerian even, and they'll wind up in France or something. But give me your initial thoughts before we kind of dive into it deeper, because there's some more to say about it. But what's your perspective on the whole matter?
So to be honest with you, like I don't really know a whole lot other than like this was basically my understanding was that there was some loophole in the Spanish like legal code that immediately got exploited on like the worst part that has since been resolved. I think whenever we first decided we were going to shoot the podcast that it was still an ongoing crisis and now it's mostly resolved. Do you feel like that's fair or do you feel like no?
Oh, that's fair. That's a pretty accurate assessment, I would say. I believe most all of the migrants, not all yet, but most all have returned to Morocco. And uh, I think the problem is that just, I think it was like a month or a few weeks prior to last weekend, the Spanish government, which is uh, headed by a left winger, Pedro Sanchez, they basically gave an amnesty to like, I think it was like rather millions or roughly a million. I forget the exact number, but a ton of migrants. And I think basically that, the Occam's razor is that gave a lot of these Moroccans the false impression that if they could just storm the gates to this small Spanish holding in North Africa, that they could somehow be given an amnesty and then maybe they could find their way into Europe eventually, when
Yeah.
that's just not the case.
If I can, because this is something that tripped me up as well. So I just want to point it out to the audience. So Morocco is across from Spain through the Strait of Gibraltar, but Spain owns a portion of land on that northwest Africa like peninsula, right? And
Hmm.
the migrants were rushing to that. It's not as if they were rushing to Granada or Madrid, right? Like they were rushing towards this small isolated land that is technically Spanish, right? And they were like exploiting the whole thing, right? Like that's right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's
Okay.
exactly right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but do remember that tripping me up. I was like, "What do you mean? Like, there's an ocean? Like, there's?" But go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And yeah, once I learned, because when I first saw the videos, I'm like, holy crap, because most of the videos showed the people coming from the water. I'm like, this many people took like a dinghy or something and trekked all the way across the Mediterranean Sea. And now, granted, they're pretty close, even though they're separated by water, but that's still a very long trek to make by sea, especially if you're in like a small vessel. So I was like, wow, this is just really crazy that this many thousands of people showed up.
Yeah, and people died, didn't they?
Yeah, a small amount. I mean, obviously, uh any death that is a big deal, but it was like 18. But you got to think there's like
Well,
at
they're
the
lucky it
higher
wasn't more, to be honest with you. Like how many people like total like rushed this like Spanish like point? Like it's
upper
thousands.
estimates are 60,000, like
60,000.
60.
Dude, it's a miracle. And I mean this seriously. It's a miracle more people weren't shot. Like, you know what I mean? If people tried to flood the Mexico border in the Trump administration, we would have Marines committing war crimes. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, if there was like a caravan in the amount of 60,000, I could certainly see it. You might even have to start shooting just to get them to go away, because that's insane. And obviously once they're in, you can't do anything unless you're just yeah. So I mean, it would honestly, in my opinion, have been completely understandable.
Well, let's not go too far, right? But
Well, I mean, they did go in, and I saw the videos of, I mean, they were breaking into houses, and by all means, it was a kind of invasion. And honestly, I mean, they had the manpower. They could have, I mean, thankfully, they weren't organized, but you got to think Morocco has wanted this land for a long time. They could have just taken it.
yeah. Do you think that there was any like foul play here? And like, because that's the other thing. And I got to be honest with you, like I haven't researched this enough. Do you think that this was like a manufactured thing, or this was organic? Is I guess maybe a better way to phrase the question.
I am 50-50 on
Okay.
this matter, and I'll give, so we basically gave the argument for the organic we
Yeah.
gave the organic argument, like, oh, Spain did this amnesty and maybe a rumor spread like wildfire and it led to this. And that is very believable. I mean, it's been happening for over a decade now. We'll see large swaths of migrants trying to break into Europe. So that's believable. But what conspiracy theorists have been speculating, they've been kind of doing a cui bono analysis. So who seeks to benefit? Well, and they'll bring up Israel. And look, I'm skeptical of Israel and their schemes and their doings, but uh, I'm going to present this in the best way that I can, and then you tell me what you think. So their argument is who seeks to benefit, and well, if you've been following politics for the last year or so, like we have, Spain and its left wing government has been very anti Israel, very vocal in their support for Palestine, and has been a real thorn, I guess, in Israel's side diplomatically. Now, if and Morocco, on the other hand, has actually been relatively friendly with Israel, even though Morocco is a Muslim nation. So if it's the case that Israel wants to strengthen its ties with Morocco and wants to maybe punish Spain a little, and their left wing government, and while at the same time giving total media fodder for the right wing opposition in Spain, then maybe they could coordinate or promote a migrant crisis uh, with the Moroccan government by just saying, hey, how about you do us a solid and tell your border guards to stand down, and maybe we'll do like a social media campaign, which they do have the capacity to do, and promote the idea in like Facebook or something that all these Moroccan migrants should flood into Ceuta and maybe they'll be granted an amnesty. And it
Mhm.
it would seek it would benefit Israel to do this. And there were things on social media at that day that I think just gave fuel to the fire. Like you saw Israeli politicians like congratulating the Moroccan king on like there was some anniversary or and basically they were gloating about it online. Now, is that proof they did anything, or are they just gloating to the Spaniards that something bad happened to them? Who knows?
Mhm.
I do think ultimately, though, that Israel did benefit from this minor crisis because it strengthens the right wing parties in Europe who are overwhelmingly pro Israel. So I could see the argument that not only does Israel have the ability to organize, like maybe like a social media campaign and would benefit from doing so, but I just don't see a smoking gun. Like they have means and motive, but I don't know that I don't know that we have evidence of them directly doing so. Not, and if it was some clandestine operation, maybe we wouldn't, but they do have the means and they certainly do have the motive. So that's why I don't think it's implausible, but I can't just definitively say that that is what happened because there's just not proof. I mean, it wouldn't.
Well, when has that ever stopped you from believing in anything?
Uh well, I see.
So you want me in the audience to believe that the opinion of the Darren, right, the wisest man on the podcast, his opinion is that like, well, I believe all the prerequisites to get me 99% of the way there, but my gosh, I just don't have enough to cross the finish line. Is that really what you want us to believe? Is that
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because it's true. Everything. I mean, it
Well,
would
they do
been.
benefit, and I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions, right? Like
Yes, yes.
that's real funny that you just I think it's real funny. You're like, yeah, so there's this border dispute between Morocco and Spain and all these migrant stuff, but anyway, Israel. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Well,
whoa, whoa.
I'm just relaying to you what other people online have said. I don't know that I would have independently gotten to this conclusion, and truthfully, I don't think I'm fully sold. But I'm just saying it seems plausible. I think it's within the realm of possibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're insane. That's crazy. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I doubt it. I severely doubt it. You don't think they have enough shit going on over there? You don't think that they have a war they're trying to win, a people they're trying to subjugate in Gaza? Like you don't think they're a little occupied? You think they have time? They're still trying to sway the president to kickstart this war again before the midterms. You think they have time to sit there and talk about fucking Morocco and Spain land disputes in the North African Peninsula? You're out of your mind.
Well,
Like,
I think Israel has more than enough time. In my opinion, they're sitting pretty right now. They're not being hit by Iran. They
for
started the
now.
war and they've somehow managed to finagle their way out of it. And we are fighting their war for pretty much entirely for them right now. And really, the Gulf states are the only people taking any or that are taking the brunt of Iran's wrath. I mean, especially these little statelets, Kuwait and Bahrain, they're taking on tons of fire, and Israel is taking none. So I think Israel has all the time in the world to be scheming because they're not getting held accountable in any shape or form.
Hmm. I doubt it. I doubt it. I remain unconvinced. You're asking me what I think. I remain unconvinced.
What percent chance do you sign it? 1%, 10%? How unconvinced
10,
are you?
10
10?
tops, tops.
Okay.
I don't think they have the. I don't think they have. First of all, I think if there was any credence to it, I think the Spanish government would have been like those motherfuckers, you know. But the fact that they haven't tells me that it's probably not true because they're not exactly pro. They're not exactly Zionist, you know. They're the Spanish government, so.
Yeah, I just think it's like, okay, they could pull off that whole pager attack against Hezbollah. I think they could coordinate a disinformation campaign or malinformation, I guess, to get all these North Africans riled up. I think it's what I assign a high degree of possibility. I'm going to say 50%.
Whenever I think misinformation campaigns, I usually think the Russians or Fox News. One of the two. I don't really think the Israelis.
Well, both of those, both Fox News and Russia are certainly guilty of that. But yeah, I just, Israel has means and motive. I think it's certainly possible. And also, did you see the video of the Moroccan border guards or police? And they
Uh-uh.
were like hurling rocks at their own citizens that were fleeing back over to Morocco.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that lends to the speculation that it was coordinated. Now, obviously, it
So I
doesn't.
just want to make sure I got this right. You saw Moroccan. You saw. I just want to be very clear to the audience, right? I just want to make sure we're painting an accurate picture here. I wouldn't want to be accused of a straw man, Darren. So you mean to tell me you saw a video of a Moroccan throwing a rock at a Moroccan, and you said the Jews must have been a part of this? Is that what you would have me believe, Darren?
Yes. Well, like I said,
But in Minecraft,
50%.
you know.
50% chance.
Well, hold on, I've got a quarter right here. Let me just let me just flip it really quick. No, that's super funny. Um, yeah, I can't believe people were giving Spain shit for telling these people that they can't. Like, I think like some of these people got caught in that like left wing vacuum, and they were like, "How dare Spain?" And I'm like, "It's 70,000 people. They just rushed over the border. You're out of your fucking mind. What do you mean? Like, that's crazy." So,
Well, see, that's surprising to me that you saw people in favor of it. I mean, I guess nothing should surprise me, but I will say of the more popular left wingers, I don't know that, and granted, I don't consume a lot of left wing content, but from the ones I did see, they just omitted it from their programming entirely, or if anything, they blamed Israel. So that seemed to be the tack that that the left wingers took in large part. But did you see any big names that
no,
were?
no, 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 nobody big, but just like the shit I surf on Twitter. Um, speaking of God's chosen people, and I don't want to move on if you feel like this is unnecessary or if you feel like we're already running long, but I just thought it was worth bringing up. Hunter Biden, Nick Fuentes. What are your thoughts? You had to have seen it, surely.
Well, this will surprise you. I'm like a huge Fuentes super fan, but I couldn't bring myself to listen to it further than like 20 minutes because it seemed like another one of those very introductory Fuentes type interviews. It was kind of like a discussion, but it's basically him debating like the very basic liberal talking points. And it's like, I've seen this, Dean Withers, Destiny, countless other debates Nick has done, and I'm familiar with, all the concepts and all the rebuttals and all the talking points. I just don't because I felt after 20 minutes I had gotten my impression of Hunter Biden. I'm like, okay, I've seen enough. I don't even want to listen to it. But how about you?
I mean, I thought it was really interesting, and I don't know if you saw. So Hunter Biden's on quite the media tour. It started with that Andrew Callahan, maybe Channel 5, whatever guy.
Hmm.
That's the name of his. Yeah. I think that's his name. He's going on Tucker on Monday. I know this podcast will have already or probably hasn't aired yet. But I'm very interested to see Hunter and Tucker talk. Like that to me sounds really interesting. But you were kind of right. Like it's pretty much it was Hunter berating Nick about some of the stupid things he said, and then Nick being like, "Well, I just see it differently, actually." Like it's. But you're not wrong. There was nothing new and profound from that conversation. Nothing you hadn't heard from the Dean, the Destiny, the Hassan Piker debate days. But I don't know. I thought we were gonna get Nick Fuentes coming out as a Democrat on that podcast. I was like, this could be sick. So I was like, time to tune in. So, but are you gonna watch the Tucker Hunter Biden one, or
um,
does the Hunter Biden saga like not interest you at all?
I've got to be honest. I think I liked him more when he was a crack addict.
He hadn't been a crack addict for over a decade and a half. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he just had aura
I think
in
he
the
still has
laptop
aura.
era.
I think he's a
Uh,
shockingly good communicator. I think it's crazy. I can't believe I ever thought that I was like, man, like the fact that whenever they were going after Hunter Biden, that they didn't just put him in front of a mic because he's really good in front of like you've seen some of the footage of him, I'm sure. Like he's an impressive communicator, and I don't know why they were like, yeah, let's hide this guy. Like makes no sense to me.
he can talk fairly well. I don't know if I would say he's some great orator.
Yeah, he's no
Uh,
Richard Spencer, according to Darren.
yeah, that's right. That's right. But he's obviously probably above average, I would say, in terms of talking on camera, and I'm sure he's had experience with it, and he's kind of been in the spotlight. And I will say, on some level, I do feel bad for Hunter Biden, like because
He got
you know,
railroaded. He got
yeah,
he got
yeah.
completely now look, and that's politics, right? He's the son of a president, for Christ's sake. Like how bad for him can we really feel? But because he doesn't feel bad at all, he feels worse for what they did to his dad than what they did to him. Which
Mhm.
I totally get. But um, yeah, I don't know. They railroaded him. Like it's nothing of what ever happened in that story was true. I still don't know how they got the laptop. I think nobody does.
Yeah, the whole story is somewhat dubious.
The Russians stole it. That's what I believe. 50% chance. 50% chance. Come on now, Darren. 50% chance.
I don't know if I would assign it a 50%, but I do believe it's within the realm of possibility. I say maybe a 25% chance on the Russian
Oh,
angle.
I was mostly poking fun at the Moroccan. You said
Oh.
50. Yeah.
But see, I think it's possible because, in my opinion, Russia has the means and the motive. I just don't see the evidence that they definitely did it. But I mean, they would benefit from sowing discord in the United States. And I think they have a track record of it. So I'm willing to believe it. Uh, okay, honestly, maybe even 50%.